Hello and welcome to episode 395 of the Mark and Me podcast. As always, I'm your host Mark. Now I'm thrilled to announce that joining me on today's episode is Faris Badwan from the amazing band The Horrors. Now for me, this band are just one of the best out there, so original, and as you're listening to this podcast right now, we've had some new music. And I think all of you should go and check it out. It's called Trial by Fire, and it's off the upcoming album, which is not out till next March. But if this is a taster to go by, my God, honestly, one of my favourite songs of the year, and I can't wait to hear the album next March. Now, today's interview is brilliant. I'm so happy with Faris. He's challenged me as an interviewer. It wasn't straightforward in the way that a normal conversation flows. It just felt like I worked harder for it, but that's not a negative, that's a real positive. And I really enjoyed the interview. And listening back today and editing it ready for the world to listen to, I was thrilled with how it's come out. So I really am so grateful, and I can't wait to share that interview with you in just a couple of minutes' time. But before I get to the interview with me and Faris, let's quickly touch base and talk about my last episode. It was out only a couple of days ago, and I was joined by Danny Filth from Cradle of Filth. This interview absolutely blew up. A massive thanks to Danny and Cradle of Filth for sharing it on their socials. The numbers went absolutely insane once this happened. And obviously this is off the back of Kat Von D. So it's been an epic week for Mark and me. And I'm so glad now that I get to bring you Faris Badwan. But before we get there, let's give a shout out to the sponsor of Mark and Me, Vice Press. As always, guys, if you're in the market for an incredible poster for your house, movie collectibles, the best site out there is vicepress.com. It really is. And on there, all the stuff is licensed. And my good friends who own the company, both Matt and James, have spent so long building up such a great reputation. They have the finest artists working for them. And if you go on there, you will instantly want to buy so many beautiful prints. And the good thing is, because of Mark and Me and Vice Press being partners, they are going to offer you 10% off your first purchase if you use the code MarkandMe10 in the little discount area at checkout. But if you can't be bothered to even go and have to do all that, there is a link on the podcast notes today. If you click that, it will automatically take you on the Vice Press website and give you that 10% off automatically. Right. Let's now get to today's interview, because the Horrors are one of the best bands out there, and I'm so glad I've made this interview happen. So, here's me and Faris talking all things music. So Faris, welcome to the Mark and Me podcast.
Hello, Mark. Thank you for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. What I do with all guests that come on, it doesn't matter what walk of life you've been on, is take it right back to the start. And with musicians especially, I'm always intrigued. When you were growing up as a kid, what was that first album you bought with your pocket money, or was given by a friend, or how basically it came to you?
You know what? Actually, the funny thing is, when I was 19. I got the chance to interview Iggy Pop, and I was
oh wow,
and it was kind of a pretty insane situation, because A, I was 19, and B, like the Horrors were playing places and playing with the Stooges that day in Leeds. So I was trying to think of interesting things to ask him, and being 19, I thought of what was like the sort of the first record, not necessarily the first record you bought, but the first record that you felt like had like a really big like impact, like a sort of formative impact on you.
Yeah.
And he said it was that track, Red River Rock. It's like a 50s rock and roll one, but it was one that I didn't know. It was like not like it wasn't like punk, like like some of the more raw 60s garage stuff. It wasn't like that. It was a bit earlier. But he was like, oh yeah, when I heard that sax, I was like, that kind of changed everything for him. And that's someone else's answer to your question.
I could now AI Iggy Pop intro and you answer it, and I can pretend I've had Iggy Pop on the podcast.
Yeah, the most worrying thing for me is I'm trying to remember what the guy's name was. The singer, Johnny Rocket? No, don't know. Well, anyway, if I was going to answer that question, I think it was a bit of a mixture because I always loved bands that looked like gangs, like the MC5,
Yeah.
or like like all the garage bands kind of have that in common. They all look like a gang. Definitely MC5 were a big one. Even the Kinks, I mean, like they're poppier, but they've still got the sort of like edgy side with the guitar tone. Absolutely love the Kinks for their pop songwriting. And then, like, I guess the gang thing is also in stuff, and definitely in like the girl groups, because they're often kind of like thinking about it from another perspective in quite a sort of sanitized way. And I girl groups are like my main collection, probably girl groups, like when it comes to vinyl. So yeah, I love that whole area, that whole like kind of way of storytelling.
So what about live music then? Because one of my first gigs was in Wolverhampton. I was about 13. I went to see Green Day, and it blew my mind. And I was like, I want to be like those guys. Like at that point,
Yeah.
there was just three of them, and I thought, fucking hell, like they're making a lot of noise. They sound great. I think it was their Dookie tour, and I wondered if you had a great introduction to live music, or was it embarrassing and shite, and you don't tell anyone, or
Um, you know what, actually, my earliest, and I never actually got to talk about this memory before, but um, it's entwined with something that's quite sad, but it makes me happy thinking about it. So me and Sophie, electronic musician Sophie, we both grew up around Northampton, um, and or at least like my teenage years, whatever. So we used to go to see bands together when we were kids, and we'd kind of we we used to go to Northampton Road Menders, which it doesn't exist anymore, but it's like really kind of like grim, um, but seemed like a fucking like portal to another world. Like when you're a kid, it's like what they've got like the door times and like what you're just waiting for it to open. You stood out the front, and so we went to see like we went to see Electric Six. We went to see the Polyphonic Spree. We went to see the Flaming Lips, who I really like. Like when it comes like some of their like stuff like around like the Soft Bulletin, I really like. Yeah, we kind of just like we would just go see anything. It didn't even really matter if we liked it or would buy the records. It was more like we went to see the Datsuns. We just go see everything, and Datsuns are pretty good. Um, but yeah, like that was like massive for me, that stuff, because it was, well, first of all, being 16, 15, 16, and never having like properly played an instrument, it felt like a world that was only accessible to a certain point. It felt like you can, this is kind of like these are all the things you can't have, but they're
yeah.
great, you know. And then I got into like No Wave and like James Chance and Teenage Jesus and all the New York stuff, like the New York late 70s, early 80s, like stuff where people were sort of like, I mean, people have been doing stuff like prepared piano for, like decades before that, but it's a similar spirit. It's like taking instruments and using them as an intuitive form of expression. So when I discovered like No Wave and all those people who were literally just making music with the means available to them, that was like so it just totally changed everything for me. It's like, oh, you can do this and you can do it in a way that feels totally instinctive. Like that, for anyone wanting to get into music, like you just have to listen to as much different stuff as you can. You want to like train your taste so it's that acute that you can just spend all your time relying on instinct, you know, like that for me. That's what making music is about, anyway.
So when was your first moment and you thought, I want to be in a band, I want to do this, even though you've seen these incredible bands? Those bands you mentioned was a proper trip down memory lane then. I was thinking, God, I've not heard the name of the Datsuns for ages. But I wondered then
Yeah.
when you were thinking, I want to go at this, I want to try.
Well, I mean, like, so actually, what happened was my first experience. I feel like when I'm telling stories, it's sort of or talking about anything. Actually, you have to be a little patient because I'm sort of like there's a lot of blanks that I'm leaving in speech that are going on in my head. So I'll try and actually just verbalize them. I was talking to Amelia, who is the newest member of the Horrors. I was talking to her the other day about this because I found the recordings from my first attempt at being in a band. And it basically was a school concert where all the members of the band had been kicked out of their respective bands, and then I was singing. Um, and we did a cover of. We had like 3 days to get the band together. The guy who was organising the school concert had himself uh, headlining, and we were the sort of like supporting act. And we did a cover of The Who, My Generation. We did The Kinks, You Really Got Me, and I sang the high note like way out of tune because it was out of my range. And what was the other one? Oh yeah, Leaving Here, which is another one. It's an R&B one, but The Who did also cover it. So we did a sort of version of those three, and I was singing at like twice the speed of the rhythm section, uh, and it sounds actually it sounds kind of fun, for like a first attempt. But yeah, that was the moment when I was like, oh yeah, okay. So and also it was totally again the performance was totally instinctive. I didn't know what you do as a front man, and my because it was a school concert, so my mum came, and after the concert she was like, well, the audience seemed to like it, but all those movements on stage you were doing they were very weird, Faris. And she was like sort of like telling me like in confidence, like I don't know if you've realized this, but your stage movements are a little weird, and would you consider maybe changing them? So again, that was fun for me. That was the first in a long line of helpful criticisms that my mum has offered.
Cheers, Mum.
Yeah, very helpful. Along with like, can you make the vocal louder? And uh, it's a bit dreary, isn't it? It'll be stuff like that.
Do you still
Or
get those?
it'll
Do
be,
you still
it's
get
either
that
dreary
feedback
or too
now?
loud. Mm, do I get that feedback now? I'm sure I could elicit it if I wanted.
Yeah. So I didn't realize it's nearly been, I don't want to make it sound old, but 20 years of the Horrors, which blows my mind next year.
Yeah, I mean, you assume that I'm afraid of aging there, but it is fucking insane that it's been 20 years.
It does, it is genuinely insane. So when you see these dates, sometimes you think, oh, it's about 10 years, and then someone will tell you something like, it's 25 years since this album came out, and you're like, fuck off, but it's true. And the Horrors have been
Yeah,
going nearly 20 years, which blows my mind. And I wondered, what is it that makes you still want to do it? And I know that's might sound like a stupid question because you're like, well, it's what I do. I'm the Horrors, and it's what I love doing. I love playing, but how do you overcome all the kind of obstacles that always keep coming your way as being in a band? And not many bands can say 20 years, can they, without major, huge
yeah.
breakups or
No, they can't. Um, uh, I mean, yeah. I think if people, there's so many things I could say about this because it's sort of like first of all, people assume that it's not necessarily the target of every band to be together forever. You know what I
no?
mean? And that doesn't invalidate whatever work they do. So like, that's one side of it. Um, on the other side, on my side, uh, I would say that like I wouldn't necessarily recommend my approach to other people because it's so, like doing this stuff is so deeply like intertwined with like every part of my life that I don't switch off, and that doesn't make the music better, like necessarily. Like being like that into it and not having like space for anything else in your life, that's like, it's not for everyone. And I totally understand when people necessarily like don't necessarily want to tour like after a while, or they don't want to make music after a while, whatever. Like that's okay. That's like people should live as their lives. But for me, uh, that's not what I want to do. I really love making music with the Horrors, and particularly, I love working with the group that we currently have as well, and we've had and I loved making the records with everyone that's been involved up to this point. It's just something that I'm still excited by, and it's something also I think we're lucky in the sense that like we have to, because of the way that our career has gone. Uh, we started like kind of getting more press than I ever thought we would. To the point where it was almost like doing too much press now. Um, and then we did a second album that was quite different from the first, and that sort of allowed us to be able to make different kinds of music and have a sort of like fan base that are up for that. So that's cool. I think I wouldn't still be doing it if if I felt like we were painted in a corner and we had to just make the same record forever and ever again and again. Like, that sounds more like purgatory. But luckily, we can like explore other stuff. So yeah, I mean that's cool for me. There's no reason for me to not want to do it, basically.
Do you love the fact that with your band over the releases you've had, you can evolve and do what you want and not always play it safe and keep the same band, the same
Exactly.
sound? My favorite bands
Yeah.
are always bands like Radiohead, Thrice, Paramore, bands that don't play it safe and think, fuck it, we don't care. Like, we've been successful, but we're going to change it all up for the next one. And I wonder, it takes a bit of
Yeah.
bravery, doesn't it? Because you could play it safe and just keep releasing the same album again and again, but you're like, no, let's fucking do something different.
Yeah, I mean, like, just, but also with along with that, it's not like I'm fucking expecting a pat on the back for that stuff. It's more just like this is what makes it fun.
Yeah,
Like that's actually what makes the whole like you're fucking doing something creative. Why would you not want to be creative? Like, why would you not want to do something a little bit different to what you've done? Like, it's yeah, I think for me that's like what the whole process is about. But it's not like the Horrors ever had like huge pop hits as well. So it's not like we got so far into like like I think there's a level of popularity that can naturally end up confining you.
yeah.
And I feel like I feel pretty happy with with like how we've the manner that we reach people or whatever. I think and the freedom that we have to make records we want to make. Like I feel pretty good about that.
But it's nice that you've evolved and never played it safe, because it would be very easy to fall into the category of being lazy and thinking, well, that worked, that was quite successful, so we'll just keep
Yeah, but
copy and
that's just not
pasting.
what it's not what it's about though for me. It's not at all what it's about, that whole thing.
No, it's
Um,
good. It's how it should be. But some people do that, and you think, oh, fucking hell, like, it's good and it works, but I'm sick of it after 10 albums, you know?
well, yeah, I mean, definitely after 10. Um, yeah, but I don't know if it's laziness necessarily that makes people do that. I think maybe it's also fear, you know. I
Yeah,
think
that's
it's
fair.
also like, but also I empathize with that because I think having been in a position where you're on like a fairly big label and there is pressure to do certain things, like I would say the Horrors are probably like, we have for the most part avoided outside influence after the first record. Um, like we've avoided outside influence musically, which is cool. But I think internally, I think at points, probably in the middle, like around like the fourth record, I think we started to feel a bit of pressure to have songs that were as accessible as maybe something like Still Life. And I
Yeah.
think it made the record worse. And then I think we learned from that and made sure that everything afterwards didn't fall into that trap. But it's like whatever you try to make the best record you can. Some records are better than others, and that's totally valid. Like you just keep going, you keep trying to make it best record you can.
So with Nightlife, what's it like sitting here now with it being 5 months until it comes out? That must feel frustrating. I'd hate to do an interview and be told you can't do this and release it now for 5 months. I'd be like, fuck.
That is a big part of being in a band. I mean, I've waited like 2 years to release a record before. I've waited longer. It just happens. And it is weird. With this record, first of all, I am really proud of it. It like absolutely nearly killed me. And, like Rhys and I particularly had to make a lot of sacrifices to finish it. And Eve, the producer as well, who was like so determined. We were lucky that we had a group of people that wanted to finish it. So I'm happy, man. It's like we got another track coming out in like whatever, a week or so, and then another one before Christmas. This is the stuff that I want to be doing.
Trial by Fire, I've been sent, and it sounds fucking brilliant. The production and the sound and everything, it's fucking awesome. I can't wait for people to hear it.
Thank you.
Like, you should be very proud.
Thanks, man. It's actually out of the whole record, it might be my least favorite song, but
Oh wow.
But I'm proud of it.
I'm always interested, especially with a band that's been going almost 2 decades. Have you been able to ever take a step back and see the band grow instead of it being so invested in your soul? You said you never switch off. Or you're always doing the band. It's always absorbing you. So are you ever to take?
I'm always doing music.
Well, always music, yeah. But
you ever? That's like producing other people, which I do quite a lot, and that kind of gives me a bit more of a like outside perspective, I guess.
That's good. I was wondering if it's because some people are so caught up in it. I wondered if you're ever able to take a step back and see, actually, 10 years ago, this crowd wasn't as big and people weren't singing the songs back, and now on the poster we're higher up at the festival, or do you get to see the actual reward and the payoff?
Well, yeah, I mean I guess that's kind of interesting because there are a few times that I try to do that. I try to make sure to notice and appreciate the good things that happen, and also appreciate that they are like kind of sometimes outside of the bounds of like most people's reality. It's like sometimes you get to do things that are pretty weird and like pretty amazing, unique experiences. So that's great. But when it comes to payoff, I wonder about the payoff because it never feels like it gets there. You're just like which is even more reason to appreciate the journey, I guess. But I try to, but I also try not to think too much about the past in terms of like whether it's important or not, because I don't think you can really tell until you're quite a long way away. I think there's time later in my life to think about that stuff, and I really do mostly think about things I would like to do because that for me is more fun.
Doesn't it feel like the older you get, maybe I sound like a granddad, but the little things mean so much more, and the big things that felt like they were absorbing your life and taking over, and huge dramatic events, when you actually reflect on them in time, don't mean jack shit, really.
Not really. For me, well, I mean, okay, wait a minute. Hold on a minute. Do I agree with you? I might agree. I think maybe I do agree with you. I think I think the little things have always been the big things for me. I think the little things like, it's not a little thing. Like, for example, if someone whose opinion you appreciate, maybe like, you work with and you create something really cool together. That's really amazing. I love having a finished piece of artwork that like feels right and like feels like it represents like the mood of the songs, like stuff being cohesive and like bringing that all together is really fun for me. And I guess I don't know. I guess there's been quite a few sort of like dramatic things in my life that have happened fairly publicly, whatever, like, a while ago. So, like, I don't know, like, I don't know, personal stuff. So then I does that make? I think maybe I do think that some of the things maybe that the, sorry, this just I'm going to do that thing where I just stop and not say what I'm going to say because I actually don't think it's interesting.
But there's something there, isn't there? There's something that's in there that you're thinking about that's making you want to talk, but you're not allowing yourself to.
You want the gossip, don't you?
Dude, if you listen to any of my podcasts, there's never any gossip. There's
I'm
never.
just winding you up, man.
Yeah, I've had producers after the interviews ring me up and say, "Can you take that line out?" I'm like, "Dude, it's already gone."
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, okay, it's just so right now. Well, this isn't even what I was going to say. I'm just thinking about stuff that is important to me, and I think like, being first of all being Palestinian, it's like I'm sort of. It's a really strange feeling because on one hand I've got this thing that I've been working on for literally years, and I think and like the horrors, whatever, is like a really fun, exciting thing, and I really love working with everyone involved. And then on the other hand, I'm seeing this fucking insanity coming from Palestine every day in videos, and then I'm
Yeah.
watching a totally different story represented in the media, and that is a really confusing sort of like double life kind of to be leading because it's like it's just those experiences are not. It's hard to sort of like figure out where to place these sort of like feelings, in your life. I think day to day.
Are you happy at the moment? Is life good?
Uh, yeah, for me personally, I feel happy when creative stuff I've been doing, um, like comes, like happens, comes together. So in that sense, I'm really happy. On the other hand, on a daily basis, I feel like furious and and upset and whatever. Like, I don't think, God, probably before the last 3 years. I don't know. I don't know. I can't actually. Maybe I'd think I could remember maybe like a couple of times I'd cried in my life. But there are horrible videos that I've seen, just disgusting things that are being done to humans. And yeah, that's probably enough of that for now. But free Palestine.
Nicely said, and it's not of with full respect, I try and avoid any politics on the podcast because I just don't want the shit that comes with it online and people bashing or having their view and saying that I'm wrong
Yeah,
or you're wrong. So I usually try and celebrate music, film, TV with a release from putting the news on and seeing that horrific stuff.
I know, man. It's difficult. It's hard to know where to put it, But some things are kind of like too important. I feel like.
No, it is. I'm not trying to ignore it in any
No,
way or.
I know you're not. I know you're not. I do
Yeah.
understand needing the space away from that stuff. Again, one of my issues that my girlfriend kindly pointed out is that maybe like watching these videos first thing when you wake up isn't the best way to start your day.
No.
So yeah.
Something you said earlier, which I didn't know about yourself, that you obviously produce other bands as well. How is it then when you're recording your own music and working with another producer, not kind of getting too involved because you've got the producer mindset, you've got the thoughts where you're like, I want to do this. Are you able to take a step back and let someone else paint your picture?
Um, well, it is a bit difficult, and I think as a band we have for the most well we've produced our own. We had our own studio for a bit, and we produced our own records. We produced Skying and Luminous ourselves, and Primary Colors was sort of I guess they're always because they're always co-produced because we're always doing a lot of the production ourselves just by nature of the sound.
Yeah.
Like if I'm producing a band, it maybe is well, it can go. It depends on the band and it depends on the project because you're not trying to. I don't believe that necessarily you want to be putting your stamp on someone else's work. I think it really, there's the Phil Spector approach where you make everyone sound like you. And it's interesting because the Phil Spector approach is it's quite similar to like modern producers in the sense that like for a start there's just because of probably for financial reasons, a lot of the time and practicality, a lot less bands now than there were. A lot of producers are the artist in many ways, and they're choosing how the sounds are. So for me, it really varies. I think sometimes you want to capture a band in their rawest form and try and keep it to that. And sometimes you want a bit of both, like this band that I worked with recently, Mink. Um, like they're really great songwriters, and they've got a really, like just I love their parts and the way they play. And I, like added some of my own sounds in there, and we've been doing stuff, and yeah, and that works really well. And that was how I met Amelia, who's just joined the Horrors. I worked with her old band, The Ninth Wave, and then I produced her solo record, which isn't out yet. And yeah, like for example, her solo record, like, okay, I added some of the sounds, but the basic world that's coming from her, and the songwriting is coming from her, and and it's like I recognized that her ideas, and her vision for it are what the thing should be. Like that's the best representation of it. So I think when the Horrors work with a producer, it's quite collaborative, and generally the producer kind of becomes a bit more like a member of the band. Like in this case with Eve Rothman. So he works with Eve Toomer. And if you listen to Eve Toomer's records, like you can hear how much chaos there is going on there. It's like it would be a hard job as a producer. It's like it's really good, but there's a lot going on. So the fact that he is able to rein all that in and make it into like something cohesive and something that, records, basically, and a really great live show as well. His approach is perfect for the Horrors because he gets involved, and knows how to kind of like make best use of me and Rhys chucking a load of sounds in there, which, we often do in quite a chaotic sort of DIY way. And yeah, we're just sort of like trying to get better at arranging, because I think the more music I make, the more I realize like less is more, and like a well chosen sound or a well chosen part in the right place is better than doing like 10 layers of stuff in there, which we've done both approaches. So, I feel like this record is quite a good balance.
Are you excited to, I think it's the end of November, isn't it? You've got a few dates in the UK going into December, getting these songs in the set list, and now you've got a new member of the band. The dynamic is going to naturally change. So it must feel really, really fresh having new music and a new band member.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like I like having Amelia in the band because she's really fucking talented. But like aside from that, we like Rhys and I have a really good working relationship, and like we have to, because we spent so many like nights at his house just getting the songs together and making sure that the album didn't fall apart, because like every record, you're investing a lot of time into it. If you think about it, it's like it ends up being like years of work, but we have a good partnership, and yeah, I feel like it's the most fun I've felt, like in probably being in the band for quite a while, actually.
Do you get nervous before shows still, even though it's 20 years in? Are you kind of like, yep, just do it, get on stage, perform, that's what I do, it's what I want to do, it's how I should be living my life? Or do you think sometimes, I don't know if I can do this tonight?
No, I love performing, and I never get nervous before shows. I get nervous for other things, but I don't get nervous for shows. Um, and basically, I think I had a period in the middle of the band where I found it quite hard to be a, a front person, because I found it hard to square the kind of confidence that you require, like with how I would be in like day-to-day life.
Yeah.
Like I felt like, I don't know, I struggled with the idea that basically you sort of need of ego, and like you need to attract attention if you're going to be the front person. That's literally your fucking job. And I struggled with that for a bit, because I just sort of like, even going on stage, like without even looking, I remember there were tons of times where, like saying like the even when I first went on stage, that should be like an exciting moment for the audience. And sometimes, quite often, I would sort of like slink onto the stage, almost like not wanting to be noticed. But yeah, I think the job of a front person is to like hold the center of the stage and like help the performance. So I don't question that anymore. I just do it, but I also think that I don't have a use for that kind of I don't have a use for that kind of confidence off the stage.
What does make you nervous then? What do you get scared about?
Um, well, yeah, it's not really. I get an anxiety response to do public speaking, but I also kind of enjoy the challenge. Like I did a art exhibition like a couple of years ago in Dubai, and I had to do a talk in front of whatever all the people that came to the exhibition, and that was pretty nuts because it was like they stood in front of me, literally I could reach out and touch them, and I'm walking them around this exhibition, talking to them about my paintings, and there was a sort of 20-second section at the beginning where I just froze. And in my head, I was totally sort of conscious of like, okay, this can go one of two ways. I decided, also in that moment that, well, I do know what I'm talking about. I did make the work. I know why I made the work. The whole point of the exhibition actually was based around paintings that were done while on the phone to people, like in conversations like this, because it was during lockdown. So I did it all on like Zoom calls with people, and I'd spent the whole time thinking about why I was doing this and whatever. So it just required me to express it to people, and also maybe I think maybe people who have trouble with public speaking, it's like maybe they feel like they don't deserve to take up the space in that moment, but it's not like you're doing that all the time. I think everyone deserves a moment to take up space for themselves.
I'm offended that I've not seen you painting while we're on this call today. You've not done any artwork. I've not seen a pen, a paintbrush, anything. So this can't mean that much to you.
It could well have happened, but it's actually because the interview meant so much that I wanted to give you not only my undivided attention, but more of my eye contact than I usually offer to most people. So, it's all a balance.
So I should be flattered, really, that you're not
It depends on whether you value my attention or not.
Well, I'm here now, and at the start I said half an hour, and I'm like, it just feels like we're warming up now, and we're 45 minutes in. So
Yeah.
I'm fascinated.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that.
What I want to know is, I don't know your full background, but away from music, surely, and maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, but what about making a film? What about short films? What about directing? Surely that's a big love or passion if you're so creative
Yeah.
with visuals.
Yeah. So, I've got this Excel document that I started making a few years ago, which is a catalogue of every film I've ever seen in my life, including
Wow.
a one-line review for each. Because I really love, like I actually, in some ways, because I do shoot stuff like little clips and stuff I've done for the band or for my other band, Cat's Eyes or whatever, I've done stuff like that. And in a way, I feel like more naturally at home with a camera than I do with anything else. Like it just feels like you got the visual, like I know what to do with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I know where I would like to take something. I know what I'd like to do to change whatever. So like an image. So yeah, I love doing that. I definitely would love to do more film soundtracks. Because the one that Rachel and I with Cat's Eyes, the one that we did for the Duke of Burgundy, uh, I was like so proud of. Um, and I would love to do more of that because it's a different kind of writing, and it's more kind of like you've got these visuals in front of you. You've got these, in this case, amazingly shot visuals by Peter Strickland, and it was just a case of putting the music under them and trying to accentuate the feeling in certain places. And that's like, yeah, great. I feel like I understand it. In some ways, I understand that more than what it takes to construct a song.
Is
It's a
that because
different
it's all
thing.
you as well? You're the guy with the camera, so it's all in your head. It's all your thoughts. You haven't got to rely on another set of musicians, another dynamic, another way of thinking. It's literally
Well,
your
uh,
soul way. Like David Lynch hasn't got somebody else saying to him the whole time, I think we should change this. He's letting his brain do the talking. He's letting his visuals speak. So I feel like a director's in more control than a band member when there's 3 or 4 other people to consider at all times.
Yeah. I mean, like doing a soundtrack for someone, I guess, is a little different because, they're obviously you're trying to get in line with their vision, and ideally you would be aligned on it anyway. So whatever. I get what you're saying about like maybe the pure, like having pure creative expression, having the opportunity to just like express yourself in a completely pure way and like carry an idea through from beginning to end.
Yeah.
Maybe that's great, but I really believe in collaboration, and I think one of the things that I have loved the most about producing other bands is the collaborative aspect, and trying to get something from the people I'm working with, or them trying to get it from me as well. But we're trying to get stuff that wouldn't come out if either of us were working independently, So and that's really cool as well, because then you're sort of like you're reaching a place that you wouldn't have reached on your own. So that's fun to me as well. Too much compromise is not a good thing, I think, as well.
I really hope one day I see a film that's got your name attached to it. I think that would be fucking awesome.
Well, I would be very proud if that happened. I also, having seen what it takes to get a film made, and like how much the film changes every time someone comes along and like offers funding, I think it's really difficult to do. And I definitely think the more you can shoot yourself, the better. Films can be made now. I mean, I saw a great one that was all shot on iPhones. It's not even a completely like, unique idea anymore. Like people do it. There's one called Tangerine that's based.
Yeah, it's a great film.
The
whole thing was done on an iPhone. The whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's all done on iPhone. You can do it. Editing and grading are a massive part of filmmaking. It's like you can do so much if you're good at editing. But yeah, so I mean, I'd love to do that, but there's only so much time.
And you've done 20 years of music, so I don't see you giving up that anytime soon.
No, I definitely wouldn't. But I don't think I would be able to. I'd feel like a part of myself was missing. Like I really think that I go through a real existential crisis when I'm not releasing music. It's kind of like I start to question whether I'm even alive, and that's probably not a good thing. But yeah.
So I might come and see you. I'm just looking at the dates now. Manchester looks good. December. That seems like a good time to come.
Cool. You can come and verify that I'm alive.
Yeah, and I'll bring a script and we'll write a film, and next thing you know, we'll be fucking the next Coen brothers. Yeah,
well, that's the kind of thing that I agree to, and then that's why I have no life. But yeah.
What I do, and it's my final question for you today, is you get to choose the outro piece of music. It can be any song, any band, any piece of music from a film. But anything you want is the final piece of music played today after our interview's all edited and wrapped up. And what I like about this is the reason why that song came to your head before any other.
Wait, is it just the first song that comes into your head?
Well, yeah, because otherwise you're going to have about 1 million songs in your head, aren't you, at the moment?
You won't find the song that first came to my head. Sorry. I'm sorry, just fucking forget I said that. Sorry.
No, it's all good.
Oh God, okay.
Basically, what would you love as an outro song today, buddy? And it can't be your own band. That's too arrogant. I've had one person do that, and I was like, you can't do that.
No, you really can't do that. No, you really can't do that. And thankfully, that option didn't even occur. Just the MC5, Kick Out the Jams.
That works. That's beautiful. Nice little 360 from the start.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time today, dude. I hope it's not been too painful.
No, man, it's all good. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I really do appreciate it, and I'll come and say hello when I see you in Manchester.
Okay, that sounds good.
I'll let you enjoy the rest of your day, and thanks for turning up this time.
Thanks, I got it. Not the first person to say that.
So there's my interview with me and Faris. What an interesting guy. What a great interview. Really challenging, like I said at the start. I really enjoyed it. It didn't feel like your normal instant chemistry. I felt like I worked for it. We clicked. It took a while to warm up, and I felt like that's what happens sometimes on Mark and Me. It isn't always straightforward or a simple interview straight away, and I really got a lot from it. And I want to say a massive thank you to Faris and the Horrors for coming on the podcast. It means so much. And a massive thanks to Lydia as well at Virgin for making this interview happen. Without you, this podcast wouldn't be where it is today, so thank you so much. And also thanks to you guys at home for taking the time to listen. I really never take it for granted. So if you've enjoyed today's episode and you're a fan of the Horrors, or you're a fan of Mark and Me or Faris's work, why not just take a couple of minutes to share this episode? It's literally just a couple of buttons that you have to press. It's that simple. If you're on Twitter or X or whatever it's called this week, please share it by hitting the retweet button. If you're on Facebook, just like it and then hit the share button. If you're on Instagram, like it with that heart button, but also just hit again. It puts part of your stories or something. It goes a massive long way. And if you want to find any of my socials, they're all on markandme.com. Also, I do have a Patreon account. This basically helps me keep the lights on and pay for Mark and Me. People don't realise, but as I'm a one-man team, there are costs, there are outgoings, and that's basically to host this podcast on all those different directories. It costs a lot of money when you have a lot of downloads because there's more bandwidth required. So, if you go onto markandme.com and click the little link that takes you onto my Patreon page, what that means is you sign up. Every month you give £1 or £2. That goes right back into the podcast, allows me to host this podcast, also go out there to gigs and basically interview these bands for you guys at home. And all in all, it means you're going to get more interviews if you support me via Patreon. But don't think I just take your money and give you nothing extra. You get exclusive episodes called The Lost Tapes, you get a welcome pack which includes a beautiful badge and some stickers, and you get a monthly newsletter as well. So I make sure you're rewarded for giving me those donations and helping towards Mark and Me grow. Before I go, I want to give a shout out to the other sponsor of the podcast, Richer Sounds. Again, without those guys, I couldn't do this podcast. And if you're in the market for a new home cinema surround sound system, Sonos, a TV, a Blu-ray player, some headphones, whatever you need in audio and visual, go on richersounds.com or visit any of their high street stores. Things aren't going to slow down anytime soon, and it's the big build up to episode 400. Only 5 more episodes and we're there. So I can tell you now, it's only going to be about another 24, maybe 48 hours until you get another episode of Mark and Me. So until then, go and listen to the Horrors, look after yourself, take care, and I'll speak to you all very soon.
Right now it's time to take out the jams, motherfucker! The girls can't stand it when you're doing right. Let me up on the stand and let me kick out the jam. Yes, kick out the jam. I have to kick them out. Yes, I'm starting to sweat. You know my shirt's on, but what I'm feeling in the sound that I'm bouncing, be bouncing, be bouncing. When you get the feeling, you got sign them all, put that mic in my hand and let me kick out the jam. Yes, kick out the jam. I kick out. them kick out the chair. Yeah, kick out the chair. I done kicked them out.